At 22 years old, I got the chicken pox. If you've had the chicken pox, you need to have it as a small child. And so you get the automatic protection from that virus, because if you were to get it as an adult, it can cause overwhelming damage to your organs. I got chicken pox at 22 years old. Ended up in ICU for 3 days due to the chicken pox. I came out of ICU, I was in medical school, and 3 weeks later, I started with what I realized was hot flashes. And I was doing ward rounds and I was sweating, and my lecturer was asking me, what is going on? And I was like, stress, just medical school stress. And the hot flashes continued until after medical school. And I was like, no, but this can't be normal. Medical school is over, the stress is over, surely this must be something else. And then I started doing research at 27 years old and realized that hot flashes occurred when you were in menopause. So I started to wonder, was I in menopause? I went to 6 doctors who told me no. It was medical school that did it. To think I should have gone to medical school to learn how to heal myself, right? No, that wasn't the case in their mind. And the 7th doctor decided to do some blood tests. And when my blood test came back, I had 0 estrogen. I was in full menopause. And he found it so hilarious, the doctor that is. He said, oh my God, I'm more of a woman than you are. At 27 years old, hearing that, it was like my mind was blown. He further went on to say that the implications of this is that you're going to age about 6 or 7 times faster than persons your age. By about 30, you will have dramatic heart disease, etc. And he went on, and I sat down there and I listened and I listened and I listened. My heart sank. Nevertheless, recently married to a very handsome young man, I decided to fight this aging thing. So I set out on a 30-odd-year-old journey to wholeness, which leads me here today in front of you at TEDxClarkstown. Do you want to hear about my journey? I decided to focus on 5 things. You ready to write the first one down? Forgiveness. 13 years ago, I decided to separate and divorce from the father of my daughter. And in the 4 preceding years, the 4 years after, I started to focus on my clinic, but to pay the bills for my day clinic, I was working at night at the pediatric hospital. Almost 22 hours working for 4 years. I would see my daughter about 2 to 3 hours during the day in passing. Of course, immediately she started acting up at school. And I was like, what is wrong with this child? I'm trying to work so hard to put food on her table, and she's acting up. The acting up just became worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't understand it. After a while, I stopped going to teachers' conferences. I was like, teacher, teach. I'm trying to parent over here. You teach her in school, and I'm trying to parent at home. A few years ago, I spoke with my daughter about it. And she said, Mom, I was acting up because you abandoned me. I was feeling so lonely, so sad, and I just didn't know what to do. And I said, baby, so why didn't you talk to me about it? She said, Mommy, you were not around. Oh my God, I think I bawled for about an hour. And she said to me, Mommy, don't worry. I love you, and I have forgiven you. Now you need to forgive yourself. That made me bawl another hour. And then she said, Mommy, stop. Your cry is ugly. So I stopped. Needless to say, in that moment, I realized that if I understood that when I make decisions, when you make decisions, that you make it with the best consciousness that you have in the moment, the resources you have at hand. That is how you make the decision. And it may not be the best decision for other persons, but in hindsight, it was the best you could have made. And I forgive myself and I move on, because at the end of the day, I'm just doing the best I can. Next, my family. A huge part of my journey to wholeness. What were the narratives that I told myself growing up? My two wonderful parents, two reverends, still alive, loving, caring. I had a fantastic childhood. They were very encouraging. And in the midst of all of that, my grandfather held my family up, Mr. Babu. Every day after primary school, he would come down the long dirt road and he would have fruits, guava, apple, pears, and then underneath all of that, he would put candy, because my mother did not allow us to eat candy. But he would sneak candy, which was the biggest and the most amazing contraband as a child, in the house so that I could have candy. My grandfather meant the world to me. We used to watch the stars at night, and he used to tell me that I was the biggest, brightest star ever. And he just made me feel seen. He made me feel brilliant. He made me feel like I wanted to be alive. When he died at 5 years old, suddenly the family disintegrated, evaporated into mid-air for a second. And I just felt so lost. I didn't even know what to do. He was no longer there. They didn't allow me to see him in the hospital, nor in the casket. And I was just so devastated, and I felt lost. And I didn't have anyone to go to talk about how I was feeling, because everybody just disintegrated, it seemed to me. And so I said, no, you have to be strong. And if being strong doesn't work out and I get frustrated, then I get rigid. And being rigid has not served me, because at the end of the day, being a vessel of feminine energy means you have to be somebody who flows, who receives, who is dynamic, and who at the end of the day understands that healing and being whole also means healing your family. It may not mean healing the persons, but it could mean healing from your family. And that's also important. The next thing I tackled was fitness. And of course, I thought fitness was running marathons. And I beat the pavement running. And then when my knees couldn't stand it anymore, then I started long distance cycling. But little did I know that I was tearing my body and my bones apart. After menopause, that I've had for years, from in my 20s, obviously, I got to a stage, which was like 20 odd years later, where the lack of hormones was literally affecting even the way my brain functioned. And all those years of paving the pavement, because that's the narrative that was out there, just exercise, and exercise hard. But when I turned 50, all the years of exercise was not serving me at all. And I started to put on weight. I started to have brain fog. I started to have mood swings. And I started to underfunction. I had cognitive decline, only to realize that my cortisol levels were very high. So although I thought I was exercising for wellness, I was actually stressing my body out. So over years, cortisol increase was now at a level that my body could not compensate. And for you guys who know about cortisol, cortisol allows your body to go into total panic mode. When your hormones decline, whether estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, there are glands in your body called adrenals that take over and produce these hormones in addition to cortisol. And if you have high cortisol, even if you go on a keto diet, intermittent fasting, exercise 10 times a week, it's going to be difficult for you to lose weight. You're going to have terrible brain fog, your body's going to change shape, and you are not going to understand what the heck is happening to your body. And a lot of us actually have elevated cortisol and we don't know it. Our body just seems like we're going out of control, and that's what happened to me. And I had to get my cortisol levels under control. Top 3 were, number 1, get my sleep in order. I hadn't slept for 12 years. I had to start sleeping. So I had to go to a sleep specialist to learn about sleep hygiene. Next, I had to stop the rigorous workouts that I used to do. Listen, you can't get me to run a meter or cycle a mile. Did you know that sugar is now the number 1 cause of cancers? Yes. And so processed foods, sugars, and bad fats, not the good fats, is one of the primary causes why you could be gaining weight and losing control over your body. Oh, by the way, in addition, I now do 2 raw egg yolks every morning. Yummy. Yes, it feeds your brain. Because when you cook it, the benefit goes. I had to focus on my friends. Now, all of us know that every individual have an energy imprint, correct? And the persons who you spend time with can have a tremendous impact on who you are and how you are. There's a Harvard study that says one of the main causes, or the main cause, of social decline has to do with the friends you keep. I'm sure some of you know about foxholes in World War II, where we had soldiers that were in dugout canals in the ground that protect each other no matter what, that had a game plan for this battle. I have a foxhole of friends that are encouraging, supportive. They're my biggest cheerleaders. And let me tell you, it helps. Choose your friends wisely, because they can break you even when they don't want to. And it's okay to say, we're not friends anymore. And you may want to give an explanation. I remember when I got my divorce, I wrote little notes to persons who I thought were no longer my friends, like we're no longer a good fit anymore. 3/4 of them were confused. I wasn't confused, I was very clear why. And over the years, my foxhole has changed. Persons have jumped out. I've kicked persons out. Persons have jumped in. And I've pulled persons in. Because some people can take you so far in your life and no further. Last but not least, faith. How many persons in this room have faith? Faith. Almost 3 years ago, I woke up and the left side of my body was not working. I went and did the MRI, and when the report came back, it said that I had a brain infarct, AKA a stroke. I called another friend of mine. We went to college together. He's a cardiologist. And he said, you can't have stroke. You're Miss Fitness. And he did something called a bubble echocardiogram. That revealed that I had an enormous hole in my heart from birth that was sending small clots to my brain my entire life. And I guess at 50 years old, because I'm now 53, some clot stuck and I got a stroke. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Anyway, I went the contemporary way, the contemporary stroke way, and I got referred to the top neurologist in my country. And she looked at my MRI, and she looked at the report, and she looked at some other blood tests, and she proceeded for 15 minutes to tell me that by the time I was 60, I was going to be in a wheelchair, that I need to get insurance because I'm going to have another stroke by the time I'm 55, and that I need to make sure that my will is in order because I'm going to have cognitive decline, and I'm not going to know how to sign and what to sign and where to sign. Listen, by the time she finished with me, I was like, this is recipe for another stroke. I left her office dragging my left leg, and I went into my car, and my sister and my daughter was there, and I was telling them what she said. And my daughter said to me, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And let me tell you something. I never owned that diagnosis of a stroke. I told my husband, he's sitting right there, That in a year, they're going to repeat that MRI, and they're not going to see that darn stroke on my MRI. A year to the date, I repeated the MRI, and they did not see a stroke on my MRI. Not to mention that I did not, at any point in time, connect with that diagnosis of a stroke. I just went to the solution. I just went to what my faith was telling me. And my faith told me that that was not my destination. In 2024, last year, still in rehab, stroke rehab, I entered the Miss Universe competition. One of the oldest contestants ever. And I came top 5. During the competition, listen, I had to have speech coaching, walk coaching, clothes coaching, hair coaching. Listen, it was so challenging, but I said, I'm going to do this. I have to do this. Because for all those persons who need to know that if you have enough faith, you can be just about anything in life. And I want them to know that they can do it. And no matter how hard it got, because they had practices in the evening until midnight, and I had surgeries in the day, and I said, listen, Sandra, you just have to go, because nobody asked you to do this. And at the end of the day, the coronation night was the best, one of the best nights of my life. And I got two category prizes. If you noticed, I just spoke about my healing journey with 5 F's. Forgiveness, family, fitness, faith, and friends. The journey to love. Love takes work, everybody. But the biggest work you have to do on yourself is the work of loving who you really are. And today I can stand in front of you and say, I kind of like myself. And even when I mess up, I just forgive myself and just get the lesson. Because at the end of the day, self-love is the ultimate form of healing. My name is Sandra Swaby.